Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with an episode of Warhammer the Old World Battle Reports. This is Battle Report number 2. It is a 3,000 point battle that is fought between my best friend Dark Lord Mac as well as myself. My friend Dark Lord Mac is bringing the slaves to darkness, his 3,000 point Warriors of Chaos army, and I am playing the Herds of Doom, my 3,000 point Beastmen Brayherds army. So we're back again for another episode of Warhammer the Old World, and if you notice, we are actually playing straight-laced Chaos Warriors, and the reason why is because the current set of Warhammer the Old World has not made any Chaos Legion rules. Now my friends and I, of course, have created lists to play anyways in our free time with using Chaos Legion rules, but until something comes down the pike, we're just going to follow the Warhammer the Old World rules. So my buddy Dark Lord Mac decided he wanted to play Warriors of Chaos this time around, and so that's exactly what we're throwing down on this one. So we got two very hard-hitting, close combat lists. It'll be interesting to see exactly what ends up happening. So with that being said, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we will show you photos as well as rosters of both armies, and then we'll talk about the scenario rules as well as our battle plans. So with that being said, let's get this video on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Valor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you.
Assemble the army!
So the scenario rules for this one is Battle Line. It is the most standard type of battle that we actually play on this channel, with standard deployment as well as standard victory conditions, because it has the most standardized fun for us when it comes to actually playing on the battlefield. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with what Battle Line basically means, it means you have a 24-inch zone between you and your opponent. You have about 12-inch deployment areas, and basically you win by accumulating victory points. Victory points is determined by the number of points that a unit is worth. If it has standard bearers on it, they get additional 50 points. You get additional 100 points for killing the enemy general as well as the enemy battle standard bearer. So now that we're done with the scenario rules, let's go ahead and talk about battle plans. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. The battle plan here is to engage my opponent on the flanks primarily. My goal is to kind of gingerly move up forward and put some pressure on the flanks of my enemies. Hopefully I can make them spread on his enemy forces and then have my ambushing units pop up on the back. That way I can have my soldiers pop up on my enemy's deployment zone and then capture him in a full envelopment. And that's pretty much what the plan I'm going for on this one, because I'm trying to maximize the ambushing rules that are available to the Beastmen. Alright, so let's go and talk about deployment real quick for my friend Dark Lord Mac and his army of the Slaves of Darkness. This is on his left-hand flank, so let's go and talk about exactly what he has. So first of all, up in the point, we have the Pleasure Riders. It is 5 Marauder Horsemen with javelins and flails. They're packing light armor and shields, as well as Mark of Slanesh. And right behind them is Queen Elizabeth's Honor Guard. The Honor Guard is a unit of 9 chosen Chaos Knights with champion, standard bearer, musician. They have lances, shields, full plate armor, as well as marks of Sneech. And they're also being led by the army's battle standard bearer, Queen Elizabeth. She is an exalted champion. She's also battle standard bearer. She's got a great weapon as well as heavy armor and shield and mark as Sneech. She's also mounted on a demonic mount, and she also has the Doom Totem, which means that enemies suffer -1 leadership characteristic, especially if they gotta go against anything like terror or fear tests, which is great because chosen knights do cause fear. She also got Dark Majesty, which adds additional -1 leadership as well. She has a Crown of Everlasting Conquest, which gives her 5 upper generation save, as well as the Helm of Many Eyes. That does give her stupidity, but she also has Always Strike First. And that pretty much makes a deployment here on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, in the center deployment for my friend Dark Lord Mac, up in the center, that is a unit called Khorne's Forgotten. It is a unit of 20 Forsaken with mutated weapons, as well as heavy armor, as well as Forsaken by Khorne, which means they also have hatred, so they can reroll misses as well. And right behind them is Lord Tremendous, which is a Demon Prince. If you'll notice, that miniature looks a lot different, and the reason why is because the original miniature was dropped off of the table and it broke the legs off, so I got to go back and fix that. At the time, I didn't have any glue, so because that, we're using that little War Pig proxy instead. So he is a Demon Prince. He's got heavy armor as well as wings, as well as a mark as Sneech as well. He's got the Paymaster's Coin, a Demon's Sword, Enchanting Aura, as well as Poisonous Slime. And then right next on the right hand side, that unit is called the Reavers of Ulthuan. It is a unit of 29 chosen Chaos Warriors. They have champion, standard bearer, as well as musician and halberds. as well as full plate armor and shields, and they're led by a man named Catastrophe. He is a Chaos Sorcerer Lord. He's a level 4 wizard. He's also got the mark of Nurgle. And I forgot to mention, so do the Reavers of Ulthuan. They also got a mark of Nurgle as well. He's got Lore of Chaos as well as Lore of Demonology. He's got a Sword of Might, Spell Familiar, as well as the Skull of Catan. And finally, make up his far right-hand flank. Up in front, we have the Corn Dogs, which is a unit of 5 Chaos Warhounds. And then right behind them is the Blood Tie, which is a unit of 15 Chaos Warriors with Champion, Sandberry, Musician. They have Halberds as well as Heavy Armor and Shield, and they also have the Banner of Rage in that unit as well. And that makes up my friend Dark Lord Mac's deployment for this battle report. So now let's jump across the other side of the table to my deployment area. So first of all, for the Herds of Doom, my 3,000 point Beastmen Brayherds army. On the right hand side, the unit is called the Red Nails. These have 5 Harpies, and pretty much I put them over there in order to draw out my opponent's charging. Hopefully I can trigger his Frenzy ability and make him actually charge across the river and lose some troops to dangerous terrain. Making up the right-hand flank is where my monsters are located at. On the far right-hand side, that is Motionless in the Moonlight. That is my Cygor. On the left-hand side is Scaros of the Bloodstorms. That is my Gorgon. And finally, right next to him is the Beast of Midian, which is a Chaos Giant who's also got heavy armor. He's got Scaly Skin, which basically counts as heavy armor. Meanwhile, making up my center deployment on the right-hand side, that he's going to call the Mooncalves. The Mooncalves are a unit of 20 Ungor. They have a Standard Bearer as well as Musician. They're packing hand weapons as well as short bows. And then right next on the left-hand side, the unit's called the Hooves of Doom. It is a unit of 28 Bessigor with Gouge Horn as well as Standard Bearer and Musician. They also got great weapons and heavy armor, and they also have the Veteran Special Rules, so that way I can reroll any leadership test they need to take. And they also have the Banner of Outrage, which is basically using them rerolling their leadership test when they're rolling for Primal Fury. And that unit also got 2 characters. First of all, I've got my General Peliquin, the Doom Caller. He's my Beast Lord. He's got heavy armor as well as shield. He's also got the rune of the Beast Ascendant, which means he gets +1 leadership modifier to Ungor, Bessigor, as well as Gore units within his command range. He also has the Giant Blade, which gives him +1 to his strength, as well as Armor Bane 2, and also causes multiple wounds 2 as well. And then finally, we have Cabal of Constant Sorrows. He is my War Gore. He's also my army's Battle Standard Bearer. He's got heavy armor as well as shield. He's also got Sword of Might, so that way he gets +1 to his strength, a Burning Blade, so that way he has flaming attacks, and he also has the Muscular Monstrosity Chaos mutation, which gives him +1 to his strength, meaning he's hitting at strength 6. And on my left-hand flank, I got 2 other units. Up in front, that unit's called the Snarling Beast, a unit of 5 Chaos Warhounds, and right behind them are the Stormbringers, a unit of 6 Dragon Ogres with heavy armor as well as halberds. And that makes my left-hand flank for this battle report. And lastly, on the side are my ambushing units. First of all, on the far right-hand side, with that little blazing bull-looking thing, that is Mother Darkness. She is my Great Bray Shaman. She's a level 4 wizard for the lore of beasts, as well as the lore of chaos, demonology as well. She's packing a Bray Staff, as well as 2 Dispel Scrolls, and she also has the Pelt of Midnight Chaos mutation, which means she suffers -1 to hit against when people try to shoot at her. She's also mounted on a Razor Gore chariot that has a Bessigor crew with a great weapon, a Gore crew member with a Cavalry Spear, as well as a Razor Gore. Right behind here are the Brazen Bulls. That is a unit of 8 Minotaurs. They have Standard Bearer as well as Musician and Light Armor. They also have 4 of those guys have additional hand weapons, while 4 characters also have great weapons as well. They also got the Ambushers rule attached to them, so that way they can pop up on my enemy's flanks. And then lastly, right in the center there, that is a unit called the Nightbreed. It is a unit of 20 Gore. Those guys are all packing additional hand weapons as well, and they also have full command attached to that unit as well. So that takes us right to the top of turn number 1 to the strategy phase, and my friend Dark Lord Mac won the initiative on this one, so he will be going first. So let's talk about the strategy phase real quick. So he decided to roll on Gaze of the Gods, so Queen Elizabeth got +1 to her toughness until the end of the round. At the same time, Lord Tremendous, the Demon Lord, also got +1 strength and +1 to his leadership characteristic for the rest of the game. And same thing with Catastrophe, he was able to get +1 strength as well as +1 leadership for his characteristic as well. So now all these units are really buffed up and also really dangerous at the exact same time. Meanwhile, Commander Cheapskate also, at the same time, Dark Lord Matt, they decided to have Catastrophe in order to cast a spell called Demonic Vigor, I believe is what it's called, directly onto Khorne's Forgotten. That's an enchantment spell that gives them +1 to their movement, +1 to toughness, as well as +1 in their initiative. So, Warriors of Chaos Army, very, very much on the buffing on this army so far, which is actually quite interesting to see. So with Dark Lord Mac's strategy phase over with, we go directly to the movement phase. So now we're back at the top of turn number 1 for Dark Lord Mac. This is after the movement phase, and let's go and talk about exactly what he did. And in pure Warriors of Chaos fashion, he just headed forward pell-mell because gaining in close combat is exactly what Warriors of Chaos are all about. So first of all, during the charge phase, he didn't have to declare a charge with the Blood Tide, even though they're frenzied. And the reason why is because the corn dogs are blocking their path, so they could not actually declare a charge. Which is actually kind of smart, because my whole point of putting actually my harpies over here. My goal was to actually lure these poor guys to charge across the river and hopefully got them all killed from dangerous terrain tests. But Dark Lord Mac saw through my ruse and planned accordingly as well. So what he decided to do is march up the corn dogs by wheeling them directly to the base of this river, so that way there's no way the Blood Tide could actually declare a charge against them. Meanwhile, he marched up the Blood Tide directly to the right-hand side here, taking cover behind this field, and he also did exactly the same thing by march flying Lord Tremendous from his deployment area directly to the bank here. It looks like he's planning on charging with Lord Tremendous directly into my Harpies, but if he decides to do that, though, I'll just fly away. It's all I'm going to do. At the same time, he kind of created this kind of semi-defensive position here, using the buildings to protect his flanks. He marches up the Reavers of Ulthuan, their maximum allowance. These Nurgle Chaos Warriors are right next to these Khorne Chaos Warriors. I think he's doing that because he's expecting my monsters to try to come up forward through these two avenues of approach, so hopefully he can block me in those areas there. At the same time, he also marches up his Forsaken for Khorne's Forgotten. They move out their maximum allowance directly next to this church, protecting their right-hand flank. Well, looks like he's using them as a blocking position, using these buildings to protect his flanks as well. He also marches up the Queen Elizabeth's Honor Guard, and then also marches up forward the Pleasure Riders, kind of trying to lure my fighters directly, charge directly into him. And because he's out of range for his magic missiles, and that's the only shooting he has in this army, we skip the shooting phase and the combat phase, and that pretty much makes up turn number 1 for my friend Dark Lord Mac. So that being said, we go directly to the bottom of the turn for my army, the Herds of Doom. So we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 from my army, the Herds of Doom, and for my command phase, of course, I decided to exercise Gaze of the Gods. This is something I totally biffed on my last battle report because I totally forgot that I had this for my Beastmen. So I decided to take a chance and roll on it for my General Peliquin, the Doom Caller. He gets +1 to his attack characteristics for the rest of the game, which is absolutely fantastic. And as for my champion, Cabal of Constanzaros, he gets +1 to his initiative. So because of that, that was a really epic result for that. Now, since I don't have any magic wizards on my table right now because they're off on the side waiting for ambushing rules, I skip the rest of the magic phase and we go directly to the movement phase. So now we're back with the bottom of turn number 1 after the movement phase, and as you can see, just like my opponent, I came up kind of gingerly actually. I didn't actually advance all that quickly, and the reason why is because I'll explain later on if my plans come to fruition. So first of all, the first thing I decided to do was not declare any charges. I did have to pass the leadership test for my Red Nails. They did manage to pass the 4 on the leadership, so that way they can march fly. I flew them away from the bank and put them just a little bit before the Blood Tide. Hopefully I could trigger their frenzy response or rather declare a charge, that way I can pull them out in the open and then destroy them that way. I also bring up Motionless in the Moonlight. Same thing with Scaros of the Bloodstorms, as well as the Beasts of Midian. I moved them up for their maximum moon allowance so right past these trees, these buildings, because I'm going to try to do a counter charge against my opponent if I'm able to. Meanwhile, over here for my main bodies, I kept the moon calves exactly where they're located at, so that way they can shoot with their short bows directly into the Pleasure Riders. My plan is to destroy those guys with shooting attack in the shooting phase. I do move up and wheel the my Hooves of Doom, so that way they can kind of like in a good position to charge. Same thing with my Stormbringers. I got them kind of maneuvered on kind of like a wheel position, that way I could just charge forward if I have to discourage anybody that's that way. And then also marched up the Snarling Beast. I had to move and then wheel these in their open formation and face off against the flank of the Pleasure Riders. That way I can kind of like create this pocket here to engage anybody that tries to go forward. And that pretty much makes up my move phase for this one. So the move phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. So let's go and talk about the shooting phase real quick. So I had motion and Y still hurl attack using throwing a stone boulder directly into the middle of the Blood Tide. Unfortunately for me though, my shot scattered 6 inches downward, so it just landed right here in open ground, so nothing much really happened there. So was kind of sad about that. But then again, he's only got one eye, so he's probably got some serious depth perception, so I'm not complaining too much. Meanwhile, over here, my Mooncalves opened fire with 15 shots of short bows directly into the Pleasure Riders. Only managed to clink off one of those guys, so that part was kind of sad. I was actually surprised to see how much armor my friend Dark Lord Mac decided to put on his Pleasure Riders, so I was only able to kill one of those guys. Now, normally this would trigger a panic test from us unit, but these guys are Mark Slanesh, so it doesn't freak them out. It only makes them more excited, which is kind of dark. But anyway, so not much really happened for my shooting phase. It's pretty lackluster. My sorcerer is not on the table, so because I don't have any magic missiles and since no one's engaged in close combat, that pretty much sums up turn number 1. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for my friend Dark Lord Mac. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 from our friend Dark Lord Mac and takes us directly to the strategy phase. And first thing that happened is he decided to roll on Gaze of the Gods again, gave +1 attack this time to Queen Elizabeth, so now she has that permanently attached to her profile. Same thing ended up happening over here with Catastrophe, got +1 to his weapon skill. Same thing with Lord Tremendous, got +1 to his weapon skill as well. So because of these guys are now beefing up slowly but surely. So Gaze the Gods, really cool game mechanic. I'm really glad that I have access to that as well for my characters. Now he also casts a spell called, I believe it's called Demonic Vigor is what the spell is called. It basically buffs the Blood Tide, gives him +1 movement, +1 toughness, as well as +1 initiative. So I think my friend's going to do something really shenaniganly wise with his beast of with his Blood Tide. So it'll be kind of interesting to see exactly what ends up happening. So that pretty much makes up the strategy phase for this one. So the strategy phase over with, we go directly to the movement phase. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2 for the movement phase, my friend Dark Lord Mac, and some dramatic movement has taken place, primarily on the flanks. So starting over here on the left-hand side, he decides to declare a charge with Pleasure Riders, who basically barely see the edge of my Snarling Beast. So because they decide to declare a charge against it, goes smash directly into the Snarling Beast. So now my Chaos Warhounds are engaged in close combat with those Chaos Marauders. Meanwhile, the main body of his army, which is Queen Elizabeth's Underguards, Khorne's Forgotten, as well as the Reavers of Ultramon, they say exactly where they're at. They're not deciding to move at all. Looks like he's going to try to wait until I get within range and declare a countercharge for the most part. Now, meanwhile, over here, he does cast a spell of catastrophe called Steed of Shadows, which basically gives a 12-inch flight movement to the Blood Tide. So the Blood Tide decides to declare a charge directly against Motionless and White. They go flying across the battlefield right over the Red Nails and smash directly into the front of Motionless and White, so now he's engaged in close combat. Now for the rest of the turn, he basically just wheeled his Corn Dogs directly to face off against my Red Nails and saved it with March Fling Lord Tremendous along the flank. Looks like he's going to try to catch Motionless and White in a pincer attack between his Demon Prince as well as the Blood Tide as well. And that pretty much makes it the move phase for this one. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. So we're now back after the shooting phase and oddly enough the combat phase, so let's talk what ended up happening. So first of all, Dark Lord Mac had Catastrophe open up with the summoning directly on my nails. Managed to summon a 2d6 strength 4 hits. I think he pulled up 10 hits, wounded 8 times, just totally atomized the Red Nails, so those guys were wiped off the face of the earth. And that pretty much make up a shooting phase. Now during the combat phase, the Blood Tide just one-shot killed Motionless and White, killed him to the last man, didn't even get a chance to strike back, wounded him 6 times, he goes collapsing down. Unfortunately, I lost the roll-off, so he fell backwards, and the Blood Tide is completely safe, and they also chalked up 1 dead monster in their process. So, yeah, definitely letting the blood flow for the Throne of Khorne. Meanwhile, combat over here on the left-hand side between the Pleasure Riders as well as the Snarling Beast is horrible. They managed to kill 3 of my Snarling Beasts, and I did nothing against the Pleasure Riders, so that part was pretty tragic as well. So now that the combat phase is over with, we'll be right back when we talk about what ended up happening for combat resolution. So now we're back at the end of combat resolution. As you can see, the Blood Tide did a quick reform real quick, pivoting around 90 degrees in order to face off against any monsters that might be slipping through this gap here. Those guys are absolutely brutal. Meanwhile, over here, I basically had a break. I fled back 9 inches, flying away with my Snarling Beast. Dark Lord Mac decided to test restrain, and he passed his leadership test. So these guys turn 90 degrees to face off against the Stormbringers, because after all, they're Slaanesh, and they get overly excited about things like that. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2 for my friend Dark Lord Mac. So that being said, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for my turn, which is my Beastmen Brayherds. So we're now back at the bottom of turn number 2 for the strategy phase, so let's talk about what ended up happening. So first of all, I decided to take a leadership test from my leader, managed to pass my leadership test so that way I could blast the Brayhorn herd, Brayhorn, so that way I could re-roll any failed ambushing attempts that happened during the move phase. At the same time, I also rolled for Gaze of the Gods. My champion got +1 to his attack characteristics as well as +1 to his initiative, so he got that initiative until the end of the turn, which is kind of nice. At the same time, my general got Demonic Vigor, I believe is what it's called. He gets +1 strength with +1 leadership for the rest of the battle, so that part was excellent as well. At the same time, I did also manage to rally my Snarling Beasts, so because they did turn around and roll a 4, so they go 180 and get ready to face off against the Pleasure Riders for round number 2. And that pretty much makes up my command phase for this one. So the command phase over with, we go directly towards movement phase. So let's go ahead and talk about the movement phase real quick. So first of all, let's start over here on the top left-hand side because of all the charges that took place over here that pretty much kind of fell apart. So first of all, I decided to declare a charge real quick with my Snarl Beasts directly against the Pleasure Riders. Now, I was going to go directly into the flank of the Pleasure Riders, or would have pinned them and made them be able to get destroyed by the Stormbringers right charging the next turn. So he decided to flee. Unfortunately, when he fled right in front of my Besticors with that. So the Who's of Doom decided to declare a charge forward directly into them, wiped that unit out, moved up forward 8 inches. I then marched up from there. I then also declared a charge over here with Gorok, the Bloodstorms. Goros of the Bloodstormers charged directly into the front of the Blood Tide. Now, the Blood Tide did not have to take any panic tests or terror tests because they are immune to psychology because they're frenzies. So I go smashing directly into them. Now, for the rest of the turn, I just pretty much marched up and moved up everybody else. I moved up the Beast of the Midian 7 inches. That way you go directly against the Reavers of Ulthuan at the time comes across it. I then moved up the Mooncalves, the normal Moon Allowance. I marched up the Stormbringers, and of course this is where the Snarling base ended up locating at when they failed their charge. They landed right in the middle of the ruins as well. However, the biggest impact that took place though was my ambushing units. All three of my ambushing units appeared on the back edge here. So over here, of course, I have my Brazen Bulls, followed by Mother Darkness on her Razor Gore Chariot, and same thing with my Nightbreed, with my Gore is getting ready to go up against the back ranks here. So now my plans have come to fruition. I have now kept my enemy in a pincer attack, and hopefully I can just swarm and destroy his army now by charging him directly. And that pretty much makes the move phase. So the move phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. So now we're back with the shooting phase. I had Mother Darkness open fire with the summoning with her magic missile directly into the back of the Forsaken by Khorne. And I exactly did the same thing with the Mooncalves, opening with their long short bows directly into the Forsaken by Khorne as well. Did manage to kill 4 of those guys, so that part was kind of nice. Kind of softens up a little bit before I go in for the kill. And that pretty much makes up the shooting phase for this one. So the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. So that takes us directly to the combat phase real quick between Scaros of the Blood Storm versus the Blood Tide. They go greatly into close combat with one another. Now we go simultaneously, and the reason why is because these guys have +1 to their initiative from the Demonic Vigor spell that was cast on it earlier. So in the end, I was able to kill 6 of these Khorne warriors. At the same time, they were put 2 wounds directly onto Scaros of the Bloodstorms. So because of that, we do have to take a combat resolution on that one, so we're going to come right back and see exactly what ends up happening for the combat res. So in the end, for combat resolution, my friend Dark Lord Mac actually rolled beautifully for his leadership test. So these guys, all I had to do was give ground. They went back 2 inches. I decided to follow through with Scaros of the Bloodstorms, so that way I can slowly push these guys in the river and hopefully just chop this unit to pieces, and also maybe recoup some of my losses with a Swallow Hole during my next combat command phase. So that part would be kind of nice as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2 for this one. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for my buddy Dark Lord Mac. So now we're back with top of turn number 3, and I do apologize. I forgot to take a video clip before we started doing the strategy phase, so I do apologize for that. This is after the movement phase, and we'll talk about both phases real quick. So first of all, for the strategy phase, what ended up happening is that my friend decided to start adding on some more of his Gaze of the God abilities. First of all, I got +1 initiative temporarily for his Queen Elizabeth, so that way she has that buff attached to her as well. Same thing with +1 toughness to the sorcerer. Catastrophe, so he's got +1 strength, +1 leadership, +1 weapon skill, as well as +1 toughness. And the same thing ended up happening over here with his Lord Tremendous. Got +1 to his weapon skill against, and has a +2 to his weapon skill as well. At the same time, I also cast Demonic Vigor directly onto the Forsaken by Khorne, and basically those guys got +1 movement, +1 toughness, and +1 initiative. And as you can see for the move phase, he just charges forward. He figures he might as well try to break through the main line if he can, try to escape the pincer attack I've set up for him. So because he does send in Queen Elizabeth Honor Guard directly into my best ingredients, the Who's of Dooms are now engaged in close combat. He sends also the Forsaken by Khorne's Forgotten directly into my Mooncalves, so those guys now engage in close combat over there. He then sends in the Reavers of Ulthuan as well as Lord Tremendous to get into a pincer attack against the Beasts of Midian, and then at the same time he also sends the Khorne Dogs directly into the flank of Scaros the Bloodwind Spoils. The Khorne Dogs did pass their terror test because they were then command range of Lord Tremendous at that time, so now they got those guys in the flank. And that pretty much develops the entirety of that turn for the move phase. So my guys over here do have some catching up to do. Hopefully I can still engage them in a pincer attack and catch them in the middle and then destroy them that way, but we'll see exactly what ends up happening. So because everything is engaged in close combat, we skip the shooting phase and we go directly to the combat phase. So this video is taken after the combat phase, so let's talk about what ended up happening. So first of all, Scaros of the Bloodstorms fought against the Blood Tide, managed to kill, 4, 5, let's see, this 2, 5, 7. He managed to kill 7, there we go. So he managed to kill 7 Chaos Warriors. Didn't inflict anything on the Chaos Warhounds because you don't really see much involved in that. The Chaos Warhounds did nothing against Scaros. At the same time, though, the Blood Tide did manage to put 3 additional wounds directly onto Scaros, so Scaros did win the combat, and we'll talk about the resolution here in a second. Same thing happened over here. Lord Tremendous pretty much just one-shotted the Beast of the Midian. That Demon Sword was a beast, just sliced him basically in half with one blow. I even failed the roll-off for Timbers because I fell backwards instead, so that part was pretty epic right over there. The Raiders of Ulthuan didn't even get involved in the close combat, but we'll talk about that in the combat resolution. Over here, the Forgotten by Khorne, fought against my Mooncalves. Managed to kill 5 of my Mooncalves. I was able to do anything back because my entire fighting rank was done. So I'll come back with a combat resolution for that. And meanwhile, over here in the battle between the Hooves of Doom as well as for Queen Elizabeth's Honor Guard. First of all, Queen Elizabeth, of course, issued a challenge. Cabal of Constant Sorrows, my Wargore and Battle Center Bear decided to answer the call. They both fought, managed to put 2 wounds on each other, so that part was pretty epic. It was a pretty epic fight between them. Meanwhile, the fight between the Honor Guard as well as the Hooves of Doom, they managed to kill 2 of my Pestigore, and my Pestigore managed to kill 2 of theirs as well, so we'll talk about the combat resolution over there as well. And that pretty much makes the combat phase. So we'll be right back with combat resolution. So let's go and talk about the aftermath from the combat phase. So first of all, my opponent, the Bloodtide, actually had to fall back. He fled off the edge of the table, directly to the river. Of course, he had to take dangerous terrain test, lost his last 2 guys, so they died off. I tested to restrain to make sure I didn't pursue, and I basically passed my leadership test. So I turned 180 to face off against Lord Tremendous, and he did exactly the same thing, facing me down as well. Meanwhile, the poor little corn dogs, man, they fled as well. I think they fled like 5 or 6 inches, I think. So they ended up over here. Meanwhile, the Reavers all want to do a 180 to face off against what's coming towards them, which of course is a huge wave of Beastmen heading directly to their position. Meanwhile, over here, my Mooncalves actually did quite good, so I actually had to give ground. So I went back 2 inches with the Forsaken falling forward. Meanwhile, over here, my friend Hardcore Matt failed his leadership test, so he had to break and flee. He fled 10 inches, but I pursued 11. So I was able to run them down and kill them all to the last man. In fact, I almost crashed into my own guys there, causing a little kerfuffle over there, which would be kind of interesting as well. And that pretty much makes up the rest of the combat resolution on this one. There is one thing I will say. Even though the combat phase is a little bit more cumbersome now with falling back and giving ground and all that kind of stuff, it is kind of nice because it actually makes it easier to film my battle reports, because then I can show you the combat and then I can show you the resolution afterwards, which is actually kind of nice and made things a little bit easier for me to film. So maybe it is a good thing, especially for making battle reports. But as you can see, though, my friend Dark Lord Mac is in a seriously bad situation. He does have his Demon Lord as well as a huge honking unit of Chosen Chaos Warriors, as well as his Forsaken, but the rest of the battlefield is mine. So we'll go directly to the bottom of the turn number 3 for the Beastmen Brayherds. We'll talk about exactly what I'm going to do here in a sec. So that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the command phase, and the first thing that ended up happening, of course, is I rolled on Gaze the Gods. Managed to get +1 toughness this time for Cabal of Constant Sorrow, as well as +1 toughness for my leader, Pelican of the Doomcaller, so that part was kind of nice there as well. Managed to cast Demonic Vigor from Mother Darkness directly onto the Brazen Bulls, giving them +1 to their movement, as well as +1 toughness, as well as +1 initiative. And that pretty much makes up my command phase for this one. So with the command phase over with, we go directly towards the movement phase. So when it came to the move phase, not very much actually ended up happening, and the reason why is because I'm the one holding all the cards right now with all my forces. So all I really did is I just pivoted all my units really to kind of create this kind of J-hook look, so that way in case my opponent decides to charge forward, I can finish him off in close combat. So that's what I'm decided to do there, so I'm not going to even engage that unit. It's too large right now. At the same time, I sent Scarrows of the Bloodstorm directly into Lord Tremendous because he only has 1 wound left, so I managed to try to kill this guy if I'm able to. Meanwhile, over here, I did charge the Stormbreakers directly to the flank of Khorne's Forsaken, so hopefully I can be able to take those guys out and also cause some damage that way as well. And that pretty much, and I also moved up my last 2 Snarling Beasts up in order to catch with the rest of the army. And that pretty much makes it the move phase for this one. So the move phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. So now we're back with the shooting phase. Mother Darkness cast the spell, the summoning directly onto the Chaos Warhounds. Corn Dogs magic killed those guys to the last man. Luckily for my friend Dark Lord Mac, they did pass his panic test, so his Chosen just stand their ground. So no harm, no foul during the shooting phase besides that. So yeah, I'm petty that way. I don't mind killing a bunch of Warhounds if the situation calls for it. So that being said, we go directly to the combat phase. So now we're back to the combat phase real quick. So first of all, let's talk about the fight between Lord Tremendous and Scarrows of the Blood of Sporms. So first of all, I was able to go first because Lord Tremendous got wicked fast initiative, so he managed to kill Scarrows, no problem whatsoever. But the reason why I charged him is because here was my secret plan. My plan was hopefully I could cause some damage with the Timber Rule, and I won. I won the roll-off. Dark Lord Mac rolled a 4, I rolled a 5, so I decided I'm going to smash directly on top of Lord Tremendous. And when I rolled for the number of hits, I rolled a 6, so he took 6 strength, 6 hits. 5 of them managed to get through his armor save and his ward save, his regen save. So because of that, I was able to kill Lord Tremendous. So as you can see right there, he got crushed by a towering huge mass of flesh-eating badness, and it crushed him to his baser elements, sending his soul screaming back to the warp. which is all kinds of awesome. And then finally, of course, the combat over here between the Stormbringers, the Mooncalves, as well as the Forsaken by Khorne. And they already killed 5 more of my Mooncalves, which was kind of sad. And I managed to put 2 wounds directly onto my guys over here. However, though, I was able to win by, I believe, 2 in the end was all said and done. So unfortunately for my friend Dark Lord Mac, he did have to take a leadership test. He failed it. He's forced to break, and he has to run away 5 inches. I pursue 7 with the Stormbringers, so that's going to destroy that unit. And with that unit being destroyed, Dark Lord Mac realizes the only thing he has left is his unit of Chosen, so he decides to call the game at this point, and thus earning a victory for myself and my Beastmen Brayherds. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the After Action report, because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time for the After Action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action report for Warhammer the Old World Battle Report number 2. This was a 3,000 point battle that was fought between Dark Lord Mac as well as myself. Dark Lord Mac was commanding the Slaves of Darkness, his Warriors of Chaos army, and I was playing the Herds of Doom, my 3,000 point Beastmen Brayherd army. And it ended up being a victory for yours truly. In the end, Dark Lord Mac was able to score 885 victory points, while I was able to score 1,923 victory points. In the end, Dark Lord Mac lost Lord Tremendous, Queen Elizabeth, the Corn Dogs, the Pleasure Riders, the Blood Tide, as well as Elizabeth's Honor Guard. My losses were the Mooncalves, the Red Nails, the Scaras, the Bloodstorms, Motionless and White, as well as the Beasts of Midian. My current army's record now is currently at 2 wins as well as 0 losses. And to be perfectly honest, I got very lucky in this battle report with some really amazing rolls, especially in the right-hand flank, especially with the Blood Tide massacring Motionless and White was pretty much awe-inspiring. I do feel bad for my poor side guard. He's being butchered in the last 2 battle reports, being shot to death by dwarven crossbows and now by close combat attacks as well. Now, I did lose all my monsters in this battle report, but to be perfectly honest though, I much more prefer losing my individual monsters than my larger, more expensive units as well. Not to mention, Beastman ambushing is extremely dangerous in this game setting, and now that you can actually fully envelop your enemy in pincer attacks, it makes the Beastman very, very deadly as well. Now, in my opinion, Dark Lord Mac's only real weakness in his army was that he has too much points concentrated in his few of his units. We're starting to realize in my gaming group right now that the old huge blocks of the 8th edition Warhammer era are not the answer in this current edition. We're starting to realize that maybe going with smaller units to cover the field of battle might be the way to go. And the reason why is because the front rank is the only unit that actually fights in this battle report, which makes things kind of interesting. To bring up this current game mechanic that I'm seeing online called Line Hammer, which is basically a niche tactic for this version where basically you have more fighters up forward rather than in depth. And the reason why is because you need every fighter in the front rank can fight. They might not get all their attacks, but the entire front rank can fight as well. So it's like having more fighters forward rather than having them deep. So that might be something you might want to take a look at that. This edition of Warhammer might have a significant paradigm shift for my fellow gamers and I, so that's the thing we got to work about as well. One of the big highlights of this battle, of course, was the part where my Scaras of the Bloodstorms, my Gorgon fell on top of Lord Tremendous, the Demon Prince. That part was absolutely hilarious. I got really lucky on that die roll as well. Plus, Gaze of the Gods is an amazing game mechanic. I realize now that they should have been doing that in my last battle report, because every single turn you can use that if you want to spam more abilities for your fighters, so that part was pretty cool too. I do wish there were more monstrous choices for the Warriors of Chaos though, because my friend Dark Lord Mac was missing using the Mutilated Vortex Beast, which is always kind of fun, so that's the kind of sad thing about that. Either way though, this was still a very fun game. I love playing against Dark Lord Mac whenever I get a chance, and as always, I am looking forward to the rematch. So that's good for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this week, guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.